I have some really super exciting news. Before we get to the show, my good friend Corey Damon Jenkins, and one of your all-time favorites from the podcast, has a brand new coffee table book out. Yes, he does. It's in pre-sale right now. It is called Design Reimagined, a fresh and colorful take on timeless rooms. And you know Corey, he delivers. This book is packed with 10 jaw-dropping projects never before seen, not shared on his social, not shared on his Instagram, not shared on his website, and it includes real practical design tips. It's bold, it's vibrant, it's everything we already love about Corey. So here's the deal. It is in pre-order right now, okay? Trust me, you want to get your pre-order copy all set up so that when they are out for delivery in September, you don't have to wait 1 minute longer. Go to RizzoliUSA.com. That's RizzoliUSA.com, and go to the Future Publications tab to put your order in so that you are one of the first people in September to get this book when it comes out. Welcome to A Well-Designed Business. My name is LuAnn Nigara, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company WindowWorks from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. Today's episode is a tiny bit different in the best way. I'm not the one hosting the conversation. Today, I'm the guest. Over the years, I've had the privilege of being invited onto some incredible podcasts, conversations where with that host, we've dug into business, mindset, leadership, and the real lessons that I've learned from decades in this industry. So in this special crossover series, I'm sharing with you some of these episodes from other podcasts brought here to my podcast feed. These are powerful conversations that often offer a different lens, because when I'm in the guest seat, you might hear different stories, different angles, and new insights that don't always come up when I'm the one asking the questions. And you know what the bonus is? If you like what you hear in this particular episode, I highly encourage you to check out that host's show, right? So you might like more of their episodes, and we will link their podcast in the show notes and more about them as well in the show notes so that you can now begin to learn from them and their brilliance as well. All right, let's get into it. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I enjoyed having it.
Hi, everyone. I'm your host, Carol Cox. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you've been asked to do a keynote talk at a conference, or one of your goals is to do a keynote, this episode is going to give you a behind-the-scenes look at what it's really like to prepare and deliver a keynote. Keynotes are meant to be inspirational and aspirational, which is different from a standard business presentation or a breakout session at a conference, because in those you're sharing tactical, step-by-step things that people can do. Instead, in a keynote, you want to take the audience on a journey, weaving in your own stories and experiences and sharing with them your big idea. In this episode you're about to hear, I talk with one of my clients, LuAnn Nigara, and we do a debrief of the keynote that she recently gave at a large industry conference. You'll hear about the process we went through to create the speech, how LuAnn felt actually standing there on stage, the feedback that she got, and LuAnn shares with us some of the things that she would do differently, which I think you're really going to get a lot out of. You'll also love LuAnn's energy. She was so much fun to work with and to have on the show. Let me tell you a bit about LuAnn's background. She's an award-winning window treatment authority, host of one of the most popular podcasts for the design industry, and an overall business dynamo. She has a multi-million-dollar window treatments business in New Jersey, which has serviced over 24,000 customers during the past 35 years. Her podcast is called A Well-Designed Business, and she celebrated her 1-year podcast anniversary this past February. I was honored to interview her for her anniversary, which you can hear in episode 140 of her podcast, A Well-Designed Business. If you'd like to talk with me about helping you with your keynote or other presentation, let's chat. Go to my website, speakingyourbrand.com, and click on the contact link. There you'll see a button to go to my calendar to schedule your call. Be sure to subscribe to the show if you haven't already. I have more training and coaching episodes coming up, including on TED Talks and pitching the media. So this way, if you subscribe, you'll automatically get these new episodes. And also share this episode with a friend, especially if you know someone who will be doing a keynote or wants to in the future. Now, let's get on with the show. Welcome to the podcast, LuAnn.
Thank you, Carol. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, I am thrilled to have you on. I know I mentioned in the intro right before this that I was on your podcast called A Well-Designed Business in episode 140 when you were celebrating your 1-year podcast anniversary or podversary. So that was a lot of fun for us to do that together.
That was a lot of fun. And I was so happy that I asked you to do that because you were the perfect person to do that with me for the anniversary. So I thank you again, truly.
Well, because we worked together over a period of 3 months to prep you for the keynote, which we're going to talk about here today and do a debrief on it, I feel like I know you really well. I know a lot about your childhood, your background, your business, and we've never met in person.
I
We've
know.
only just done Zoom video, but I feel like just because of the process of putting together a presentation, especially something like a keynote, is so personal and intimate. And so, thank you, number one, for being willing to go deep into things like that, questions that I asked you as we were working on it. And thank you also for being willing to come on air here on the podcast and share with the listeners your experience of putting together the keynote and what it was like to actually stand on stage and give it.
Yeah, well, I'm delighted to do it because it was one of the best decisions I ever made to hire you to help me prepare for that keynote. And so when you asked me to do the debrief, I'm thrilled to do it. Happy to do it.
Well, great, LuAnn. So tell us a little bit about what the conference was and what was your goal for doing the keynote in the first place?
The conference is called the International Window Coverings Expo, and I was invited to do the morning opening conference keynote presentation. And I took this keynote presentation to be something that should be inspirational, and it should be something that, while there should be tips and actionable items in it, it's not like everybody's got their pen and paper out and they're really getting down to work. This is 8:00 in the morning. It's a 2-day event. And I took it as, okay, let's get up and let's get going, and that's what they asked of me. I ended up double checking with the conference speaker, but I think, what was it, like 3 weeks before, making sure that that's the type of speech I was crafting was what they wanted. And of course it was. And my goal in it was to, I told you, my goal was to kill it. I wanted to do well. I wanted to not just be average or okay. I wanted it to be everything that you hope to find when you get your booty out of bed and you go see a speaker at 8:00 in the morning, So.
Absolutely. And LuAnn, so you've been in this windows covering industry for 35 years. You have a multi-million-dollar business in New Jersey that you've had with your husband and a third partner, your cousin, for 35 years now. You've serviced over 24,000 customers. It's amazing. So obviously you have the experience and the stature and the status to be giving a keynote at an industry conference such as this. And then I know that obviously having done a keynote now, that you are well poised to do other keynotes at other conferences in the
Hopefully.
future.
Yes.
Well, I'm sure that will happen. So leading up to this keynote that just happened in early March of 2017, what other speaking engagements had you done, let's say in the past year or so leading up to it?
Actually, in the past year, had I actually technically done any speaking engagements? No, I would say no. I probably had not. Of course, I have the podcast, which is tremendous help for just on your feet all the time. Not that a keynote is something that you do on your feet, but just being comfortable. I would say no. The last formal presentation I had given was probably 4 or 5 years ago, and it could be even a bit longer than that, at Hunter Douglas's ACT conference, which is also an industry event, well attended. 400 or 500 people come to that event, and I had given a presentation there. Other than that, you're talking about small groups in my own showroom in front of 20 designers, that sort of a thing, but not an organized. Unless it's escaping me, I can't remember one.
Well, and like you said, you have the podcast, you speak in front of a lot of people, even if it's smaller groups, a lot. So you're very comfortable speaking in front of people. But one thing that you did, which I have to applaud you on, is that you knew in advance that you needed to prepare for this keynote, and that not just wing it or do it at the last minute or scramble to put something together. And knowing your personality, you would never have done that. But you contacted me in November of 2016, knowing that this keynote was in March of 2017. And this is what I tell people, is that at least give yourself 3 months to work on something important like a keynote. So when you were first asked to give the keynote at this conference, what thoughts ran through your mind? What were you most worried about, and what were you most looking forward to?
I would say that I was very keenly aware not to rely on the fact of what you expressed, that I do have 35 years experience in this industry, and that I do have some name recognition and some status in the industry. And even if someone doesn't know my name or our business, what you said is true, Carol. Are once you are told our cred and what we have accomplished, if you're in the industry, you're going to go, okay, let me pay attention. But I was extremely keenly aware that I wasn't going to take this for granted, and that I wasn't going to underestimate the importance of it. And I wasn't going to just allow the business that we've created and the credibility that we have to be the thing that's like, I didn't want the thing to be, well, yeah, they have a great business and it's clear she really knows her stuff, but that presentation, no, that was my thing. And so that's why even though, and I understand where you were going now when you're asking me when I had last spoke, I have spoken all the time. I've always from the time I was young, I've always been in leadership positions, and I was a president of Najabo here in New Jersey, of the northern region and the county chapter. So I have given presentations throughout my career. And of course, every day, even in my job, I'm meeting a new person 4, 5, 6 times a day. And even though it's one-on-one in their living room, it's to me, to walk in front of a group is not a problem. But even with all of that experience, there was no way I was going to underestimate the importance of the opening keynote. I did not want the owner of that conference, Grace McNamara, or anybody else to regret that I was the person that they asked to do this.
So LuAnn, what did you feel like you needed the most help with regarding the keynote?
Formulating the message. I was so grateful that was exactly your wheelhouse. So again, it's the two sides of the coin. On one hand, I have 30 plus years experience to speak to these window treatment colleagues about. And on the other hand, it was like, well, what do I pull from that? Like, what do I pull from that? And that was and I had no idea how you would do that or what you would do to do that. But I don't know if you remembered, but that was one of the questions I asked you when I was considering hiring you. are you going to literally help me figure out the message? Because if you're just going to help me how to stand and how to speak and all of that, that's not what I need help with. I need help figuring out what my is, what is, and you were amazing at that.
Well, thank you, LuAnn. And that really is what I love doing the most. And this is what I tell people is that it's so hard to do it for yourself in your own head because you were able to articulate to me and I took pages and pages of notes in Google Docs of all the things you were telling me. And it was all really useful, relevant information that eventually in some way or another made it into the keynote, but it's you're so close to your own subject and you're so close to yourself that it's hard for you to see what's your strength, which is so obvious to everyone else, but it's kind of invisible to us because we're so close to it.
Exactly. Not only that it's hard for us to see our strengths, because we're close to it. And for me, like I expressed, I have all of this anywhere I could have gone when I'm talking to my own industry. But the other thing is that once you helped me collate everything, it was what I really loved about the whole process was that at the end, I knew that it was quality information because somebody separately evaluated it. I know that I would not have come up with it as cohesively and as I don't know, straightforward and as effectively as if I had done it on my own. But even if I were even capable of doing that on my own, I would not have been as confident in it. I would have put it together. I'm a decent writer. I would have put it together. But until I delivered it, I would have been like, is this a good speech? Are they going to like this? Is this good information? Is this the type of thing I should talk about? But because I worked with you, I was just like, just learn this, LuAnn, because Carol does this for a living. She's an expert, and she independently knows that this is a keynote speech. So just keep going. Do you get what I'm trying to say there? The difference? It's almost like I'm a window treatment person. If you're like, well, I love these 4 different window treatments, and I say, Carol, that's the one that's amazing. Then you can go, oh, okay. I don't have to think about the others. So I didn't have to think about what was in the message, what was out of the message. Once you and I together with your guidance figured out what was in the message, to me, that was it. That was done. I didn't worry about I left something out. Would something else have been better?
Absolutely. So you knew that you wanted to rely on someone that was their area of expertise. So I don't know anything about window treatments and interior design.
Right.
And I know that about myself. So the last thing I would do would be trying to do that on my own.
Right.
So I would absolutely want to hire someone like you to do that for me and rely on your expertise for that.
Exactly. I'm a big believer in exactly that. When, if it's not your wheelhouse, if it's not your skill set and it's really important, then go find somebody whose it is and then listen to them. There's nothing, that's the most frustrating thing in my day-to-day business. I can come in and give you all the advice in the world and you look at me and say, well, my painter said I should do this window treatment. Well, that's just awesome. Like, whatever.
Right. So LuAnn, so now paint the picture for us. What was it like to stand on the stage there that morning at the conference and start and deliver the keynote to the audience?
Well, I mean, is it helpful if I share some of my things that I would do again and things that I would change for the next time? Okay.
Definitely.
Okay. So this is a little weird, but I have a lot of favorite songs, but I have a song, the Celine Dion, You and I Will Reach the Sky, yada, yada. I'm the worst singer on the planet, but it's a very inspirational song and it's my song. And I always singing it at my, whatever. And so one day my husband and I were in the car and I put this song on. And all of a sudden, I look over at him and he's got little tears coming down his eyes because he is just the sweetest, mushiest man. And so terrific to me. And I looked at him and I go, what's going on? He goes, I just see you on stages with this song playing. And I was like, I got goosebumps. I was like, oh, you're so right. I should have this song play, right? So then I immediately called the conference organizers and said, is there a possibility to have a song on while I'm coming to stage? And they were like, well, we've never done it before, but sure, we could work it out. So I share that because
a couple of, the things that you do and the things that you would change. So I decided that I wanted this song to be on and that the people would all be gathering in the room. And I would have them put this song on when it was time for it to start. And I was going to, instead of coming from the side of the stage or in the front of the room, I was going to enter from the back of the room. So I did two things. I stood outside the back door while people were coming in and just saying hello to them and talking to them and, hi, thanks for coming, blah, 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 which was sort of interesting and sort of good. And because I'm a podcaster, some people introduced themselves and they knew who I was. Then I let everybody go in. The song comes on. I didn't let it play 3 full minutes to drive everybody crazy, but I let it play halfway through or whatever. And I had said to the AV guy, when I come up onto the stage, just let the song fade out. But the reality is that's what I asked him to do, and that's what he did. And what I realized, what I needed to say to him was, after I've been up on the stage a few moments, I will look at you, and then you will have the song fade out. So here's the learning lesson. Number one, before the song came on and I was standing outside the room, I legitimately had butterflies, not like ridiculously so, but I had butterflies. When that song came on, I didn't expect this. I thought it would actually get me even more tense, but it immediately, I was just like, I'm dancing to my song. I've got my song on. This is cool. Oh my goodness. I'm living my dream. This is great. Immediately calmed me down. And I actually stood at the back of the room with the owner of the conference as the song was playing. She's like, I love this song. I'm like, I know, isn't this great? And so it just completely put me at ease. But the mistake was that he faded the song out as I came up to the stage, as opposed to after I was on it. And remember, I had that joke about that I was opening it up with. So the joke wouldn't work because the joke was, remember I said, my opening line was, why are you all here? Why did you come to this conference?
Yes.
And I was going to say, well, I know why I'm here. I got my Ellen moment. I'm good, right? But that joke wouldn't fly now because I didn't get a chance to dance on stage. Nobody saw me dancing because I came in behind them. So, there's learning moments, but I have to say that was, if anybody is inclined to do the same, the song immediately just set me at ease. And I feel like it let the audience know, okay, something was happening. And because I'm biased to the song, I feel like it automatically puts you in like, hey, we're going to like this mood. You know what I mean? So
yes, absolutely. Well, music is so powerful for people, for yourself, like you said, but also for the audience.
Yeah. So I didn't have that, walk up, quiet room. Hi, I'm going to start now. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And of course, the owner of the conference actually that morning in prep said, oh, I'm going to come on and introduce you. And I was like, I kind of don't want you to, you know what I mean? Because we had crafted my speech to really say who I was throughout the speech. And so I said to her, I can understand that you'd want to, because to me, that would just ruin the whole effect of the song, right? So I said to her, would it be okay if after the speech is over that you came up onto the stage and then you could say good morning and welcome everybody to the conference? And so that's how we played it.
So LuAnn, talk to us about how you actually prepared to give the speech once we had finished writing the script. So let's, okay, we'll fill the listeners in kind of how this process works. So we worked together over 6 sessions on Zoom for about an hour and a half for each session as you kept telling me information, we kept iterating, and then we put all the information. Well, we found what your angle was, what your core message was, and then we put it into the 3-act structure framework that I've created to use with my clients like you. So we had it in there. And then in between sessions, you would go and you would write out the outline that we had come in, write it out basically word for word and fill in all of the gaps. So we knew about how long it was, that it was hitting about the 45 to 55 minute mark for the keynote. And early on in the process, you had told me that your intention was to memorize basically word for word the entire 55 minute talk. And then initially I said, well, if that's what you're comfortable doing and that's what you've done in the past, try it, go for it. And then what happened when we got into February?
Well, first of all, because of my daughter's wedding and everything, we didn't have a finished product for you to sign off on and me to get going until like 2 weeks before the event. And I had originally thought that I had started in November because I was going to have this done by the second week of January, and I was going to have 6 weeks to get this under my belt. And so now it was 2 weeks out. And so for me, I guess everybody's process is probably different, but ultimately I did do more what I thought I would do than what we thought I would do when we ended our last session. So when we ended our last session, we decided that we would have an outline and that I would look at a line item in the outline, and that would cue me to what the section was. And your advice was, and is true, that for the most part, when you write a speech, you know your content and you know what each little section is that you want to get across. But you don't have to say it exactly the same way every time. It's not as critical. But I felt like for me, I was always afraid that I would go wandering down a rabbit hole and not come back. And I would be, whoa, where am I at and what am I doing? And so when you don't know this because when I tried to do that outline thing, it just kept spinning my brain. I would look at a particular line and I tried it every which way with just a sentence, with 2 sentences. And I literally just kept saying, no. And so what I ultimately did was I did ultimately write the entire speech out on index cards, but in those chunks. And the biggest thing for me that I needed to do was I needed my transition in and out of every section. And so I ended up with 50 index cards. And I expected when you and I ended that I would have an outline printed and it would be on a podium. And by the time I was done, I had no outline, no podium, no index cards. I just did it. And in that process, what I did was I just kept saying the speech over and over out loud. And the first 7 or 8 times, I needed the index cards in front of me and I needed to see what that next section was. And then after I did it about 7, 8, 9 times, I did it in front of my family cold. And in doing that, I recognized where my brain stopped when I was like, I don't know what the transition is out of this. I don't know where, because for me, if I didn't start and end with the right transitions, then I could go into a whole different section of the speech and that's where I would go off. And I did not want to be that speaker that was supposed to be there for 50 minutes and was there for an hour and 5, because that's annoying. And so ultimately, after I presented to my family, then I just really honed in on my transitions and my exits to each and out of every section. And I just literally would go for an hour walk 4 or 5 times, 6 times, as often as I could, and say it over and over and over. And then when I walked on the stage, it was like it was part of me.
So LuAnn, it sounds like that strategy worked really well for you. And I like that you focus on the transitions. I think that's really critical too, yes, for everyone listening, whether they memorize or not, is those transitions are key. And I also like that you walked while you practiced it, because there is something about movement, about doing something physical while you're learning something that I think engages the brain even more.
It's the only way I can do it. That I've always been that way, no matter what, if it's a 5-minute thing or an hour-long thing. If I've got to learn something, I have to walk while I do it.
So LuAnn, what was the feedback that you got from the people in the audience, from the organizers after you did your keynote?
Well, I actually did get really, really, really nice feedback. And the one thing that was interesting was the first thing when the speech was over, so many people came up to the stage and I was in the room for 45 minutes afterwards, talking with people and asking me questions and so forth. And that was fun. But what was interesting was, of course, I looked right at my husband first. And as soon as I got off stage, I went to him and he just, kissed me and he said, that was really good. And I just looked at him and he just kissed me and he smiled at me and I just looked at him and he said, you killed it. And I just looked at him, and now he is always very supportive. There's no question, but that's a different statement from my husband. And I just looked at him and I like a little like, what, really? And not again, because I'm seeking a compliment, but I wanted to understand. And he said to me, he goes, no, he goes, I know you. He goes, you didn't even have 5 seconds of the deer in the headlights when you got on that stage. He goes, you walked up, you smiled, you started talking. He goes, you were you from sentence one. And in past things when I've done, he has said to me very lovingly, I saw a minute or two where you were like, la, 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 and then you found your feet. And he was just like, you killed that. And so that was my husband acknowledging my comfort level. Do you know what I mean? Of
Because
course
he knows you really well.
Right. And he knew the content was good. So he wasn't judging the content. He had already seen, read, and heard the speech. He was then judging my performance. And so that was awesome. And then the participants that were there, I mean, one woman said to me, people were actually taking notes. They were scribbling like crazy, which I didn't notice. And then I just interviewed a guest today for my podcast that was at the speech. And she just said, again, it was one of the most inspirational speeches that I've been at. And I just enjoyed every second of it. And so I've had great feedback, and I'm grateful to you for it, because I know it's because of working with you.
The beauty of the message in the keynote is that it doesn't only apply to people who are in the Windows covering industry. The message really is for anyone who's in business, any type of business.
Right.
And so can you just share with us what is the core message that you wanted the audience to take away from your talk?
Well, what it is we decided that I'm a pretty much of a, like a hard line driver on expecting results out of yourself. That's what we decided in our discovery. And so then what we did further was we're talking about leadership and, be a leader. And so through the discovery, we discovered that I have 3 things that I believe create a good leader in any business, in any industry. And we narrowed them down to that I believe as a leader and a business owner that you need to define your company mission and your company core values, that I believe as a leader and a business owner that you must establish systems, and I believe as a leader and a business owner that you must decide to be excellent. That if you establish your mission and your values and you establish your systems, but you don't put your big girl panties on and do the hard work of executing these things, then they're just, love letters in a to-do book. And so we explored these. We explored. So that was the overriding theme of the speech that we crafted, and then we picked apart how you define your core message and your company mission, how you define your systems, how you decide to be excellent, and then we discussed at the end the results of doing all these things and what comes from making these decisions and taking these actions in your company and your business. And then we wove through it the different stories of my lifetime, my childhood, my business career, to illustrate the lessons that I was hammering home to them.
Yeah, and back to your husband's comment to you right after your keynote was that you said something that he commented to you that it was very much you. The talk was very much you.
Right.
And I think that's so critical for anyone doing any type of presentation, is that you don't want to just be formulaic, or you don't want to just parrot what other people have said. You really want to bring your own personality and your own point of view into what you're conveying.
Yeah. And I would say that objectively is the genius of you, Carol, that you truly spend enough time to ask enough questions of me in particular in this case, that it developed. It was almost like it was as clear to me within the second or third meeting as it was to you what my message was. But it was because of your questions and what about this? And I would describe a story or I would describe a belief and you would say, well, why do you think that? And then I would say, and then when I would describe that, and then you'd say, well, how would somebody do that? And then I would be like, well, they would do it like this. And it literally developed organically through all of the questions you asked. And then what I loved is that you then applied your system, into your story, your 3-structure story. And so that was very helpful, because that part you did say, this is beginning, this is middle, this is end. But then ultimately I'm left with a bullet point or a small sentence outline. And then, you task us with, now write the speech based on this. So every word is ultimately each of our own when we work with you. And so it is really genius, because by the time I was left you to write the speech, I felt very comfortable in the space of writing it. And, because I am a little hard-nosed with things, and I do sort of push people. But you would give constant feedback. That's you, Lou. Do it. That's how you are. Say it. You know what I mean? And so I remember there was one thing where even the beginning, I was like, what are you doing here? Why did you come? And I said to you, I know that's not the beginning. You'll help me work on the beginning. And you're like, I love the beginning. And I was like, oh, I never would have left that in. I would have second guessed myself. So you have a great way of bringing out what is truly inside of us, and then, in my case, confirming that it is the right thing to express.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that feedback. And you were a fantastic client to work with. So LuAnn, have you caught the speaking bug now? Are you have your eye on other places to speak?
Yes, definitely. And I guess it's just a difficult process, because without having that first video, I'm noticing that when you go to put yourself up for things, I listen to your show religiously, and I know that I should go to smaller events where the bar is not as high. But between the podcast and the actual business that I run, it's not my full-time thing to start to look for these engagements, and so it's easier to find more well-known ones than it is the smaller ones. You know what I mean? And with the smaller ones are easier to make your entree in. But I don't, what am I going to do? There's only so many hours in a day.
Well, LuAnn, I don't necessarily think you have to start at the smaller ones, because you have this long business background. You've done a keynote now. You're going to have the video soon. So you'll have that, for example. So in your case, because you already have this foundation and this expertise and this status, you definitely are well qualified and positioned to propose yourself to some of these bigger conferences.
See, that right there is worth the whole point of being coached by you. Do you know what I'm saying? And I just mean it objectively, not because it's flattering to me, but because that's something as an expert that I go, oh, if Carol thinks that, then go for it. Because I value your opinion as knowledge in the industry, as opposed to if you said to me, oh, good idea, sweetie, go for the PTA meetings. I'd be like, okay, let me go for the PTA meetings.
Yeah, I think that you are definitely on the next level beyond that. So LuAnn, so what's next for you? You have your podcast. Obviously, you have your regular brick and mortar business as well. So what's on the horizon for you over the next, say, 6 to 9 months? Oh, you have a book coming out too, don't you?
That's the big thing I'm knee deep into now. I really did put that. I had the first draft I had completed. Actually, I think the end of November, right when I called you, and I literally did not open a page of that book from getting ready for the speech. And so now that I'm back from that, I am knee deep into revising and rewriting the second draft. And so I'm hoping the second draft is the one, because I'm not going to be one of those people that rewrites it 15 times and 20 years later it comes out. It's coming out, and so that will be this summer. And then I also think, combined with your input and your evaluation with a book, I think then, yes, it probably will. And at that point, having the video, I think at that point, it will be easier to seek out some more of these, bigger level presentations. So I'm hoping that the book will be second draft done in about 5 or 6 weeks, and then go to production. And maybe by the end of summer, it's, available.
Well, that's fantastic. Congratulations, LuAnn.
Thank you. Thank you. Truly, Carol, thank you on every level. It's worth every dime.
Well, my pleasure. And LuAnn, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing about your experience working with me and doing the keynote. I really appreciate it.
No, thanks for inviting me.
Thank you for joining me today. This podcast is a production of LuAnn Niagara, Inc. If you want to know more about me, my books, or LuAnn University, go to LuAnnNiagara.com. And if you are interested in having WindowWorks help you with your next window treatment or awning project in the New York, New Jersey metro area, go to WindowWorksNJ.com to learn more. Have an excellent day.